Hi, hello. Hopefully you have been able to find this link and you can join us for this live Q&A session. I'm Dr. Matt Dover. I'm head of year 13 at the moment. I'll be head of year 12 next year. I've got Ethan here, who's a current year 12 student, and Meg, who's also a year 12 student, who are here to answer any questions you may have. So please, if you've got any questions, then drop them into the live chat. And if not, we've got a few questions pre-prepared that some of you have asked on the questionnaire that we sent out a couple of weeks ago, so we can go through some of those. We will just give people a few minutes to see if they can, see if they want to ask any questions. So we'll just sit here. Hopefully you're all finding the sessions have worked so far today. I know there's been a few technical hitches with certainly biology and maths, but hopefully you've been able to access the materials for things. And we will see if there's anyone with any questions. So please go ahead, chat. Can't see any chat at the moment. So well, I'll start by going through a few of the questions that you sent and asked us. So how many lessons of, one of the main questions is about the sort of timetable and how it works. So how many lessons for each subject do you have per week? Well, we operate a 2-week timetable. So for each subject, you'll have 10 lessons timetabled across a fortnight. 9 of those are taught lessons, and one of those is what we refer to as a 10th period, during which you're timetabled into a specific classroom. And your teachers should be setting you some work to do and often submit in that 10th period. How often do we have free periods to work on A-level homework and revision is another question. So it obviously depends on how many subjects you've opted for. But typically, so most people have opted for 4 subjects in year 12. That means you'll have a total of 40 timetabled lessons across a fortnight, which leaves you 10 study periods a fortnight. However, your study periods aren't necessarily going to be spread nice and evenly across your timetable, so you might find there are some days where you have a full 5 lessons to get through, and other days where you might just have 1 or 2. Is that you guys experiencing that?
Yes, sometimes you'll have one day where it's full on 5 lessons, you get your break and lunch and that's it, and then some days you'll have a free period first, free period second, and then 1 lesson, and then pretty much it's quite varied throughout the week.
One of the things we really encourage you to do in year 12 is obviously make really good use of your study periods when you have them. So, like as we just said, you may have a day where you've got 3 hours of free time, as it were, on your timetable. Don't treat it as free time. Really make the most of it and use it to get stuck into the extra work that you need to do. Have you got anything that you'd like to say about that? Have you found using study periods for study time is really important, Meg?
Yeah, well, I've got quite lucky actually. I have a Monday and Friday of week 1. I have 2 10th periods and a free. So Monday and Fridays for me really are just get your head down and get on with the homework that you've been set. So normally Monday and Friday is my chance to catch up on anything I've missed or anything I've got left to do. So I do use my 3 hours on a Monday and a Friday to catch up with my work.
Yeah, and we really would encourage that at the start of year 12. It's really good to get into good study habits, make sure you are using those study periods for exactly that, and not just drifting around and sitting in the social area too much. Obviously it's important you have some downtime throughout the day, but most of the time, if you've got a study period, you should be using it for study. We normally say that for every hour lesson that you have, you should be doing pretty much an hour of study outside of that lesson. That's not the case at A-level, that your teachers will be setting formal homeworks for every lesson, but you'll be expected to really make the most of that study time and read around and do the extra reading, maybe copy up some notes, maybe dip into some questions in the textbooks, things like that. Which leads on to another question actually about textbooks. So they've got a couple of questions about sort of textbooks and equipment that you might need when you're going to move into year 12. So most subjects are going to have a course textbook, which is which you'd be required to purchase for the course. don't jump the gun. There's absolutely no need for you to go and spend loads of money on buying all sorts of textbooks over the summer. Normally our advice is give it a couple of weeks at the start of the year to make sure that those courses are definitely the courses that you want to be studying and you're happy with your choices. And then go ahead and look about buying the textbooks. Now we have bursaries available for people if they struggle financially with things. If not, you can also look online, obviously at. Sorry, we just had a question come in. So you can look online for second-hand copies of textbooks as well, which saves you a bit of money. But talking to Ethan, I think you said roughly speaking, well, for the science, Ethan is doing all the sciences. What did you say it was about?
£40 a textbook.
Yeah, so probably per subject you're looking probably between £20 and £40 for the textbooks, and that would cover you for the 2 years. Yeah, for the 2 years. Obviously, there are some subjects where the equipment is a little bit more expensive, a little bit more specialised. Certainly in AD&T, you might have to buy. I don't know. I'm a science teacher, so I'm making this up. But you'll have to buy your paintbrushes and polishing paints and things like that. Certainly, if you do photography, I know you're expected to buy a camera as well, which is obviously a bit of an outlay. Again, if you're struggling financially, there are bursaries available, which you can talk to us about. So we do appear to have had a real live question, which I can't.
How do the lunch sign-out cards work?
How do lunch sign-out cards work? So signing in and out, that's another very popular question. Obviously, you guys haven't had this experience at the moment, so the signing in and out situation at the moment is, I'm just finding my right bit of paper, hold on.
Question 15.
Thank you. So signing in and out at the moment, so in normal years, you would be able to, in year 12, you'd be able to sign in and out during lunchtime, break time, probably more lunchtime because break time's not long enough. And normally what people will do is use that to sign out, wander into the village, maybe buy some food at the co-op and just get off site for a little bit. Unfortunately, as I've said, these guys haven't had that experience yet in Bosworth because of the situation with the pandemic at the moment. It's not been possible to allow students in either year 12 or 13 to do that and sign out and go off site, because we've got to consider everyone's safety, and obviously the residents of the village would be a little concerned, I think, especially in the past year, if suddenly about 100 or so year 12 suddenly ventured into the town, into the village. So unfortunately that's not been an experience, as I say, that these guys have been able to have. Hopefully next year it will be a bit more normal and we will get back to that normal routine. And it's just a case of you sign out at the attendance office, which you'll be shown when you tour the school. They'll give you a little signing out card. You present that at the gate, and that will allow you to go off site, and then you can go and do whatever it is you want to do in that half an hour you've got for your lunch break. And then as you come back in, you just drop that card back off at attendance, so we know who's in and who's out. It's obviously a legal requirement that we know who's on site at any time in the case of any sort of emergency. So that's how those work. One of the other questions got here: is there a specific dress code for the sixth form? It's always a really popular topic for discussion amongst post-16 students. I think if you look on the website today on the assembly video, you'll find it's about 1 minute into the video. There's a slide all about the dress code, which we are in the process of actually updating this year. But basically, you should be dressed appropriately, what we call it, for a sort of smart casual event. Clean and well presented is what we say. So, jeans are fine, no rips, not beachwear, things like that. Obviously, you've got to consider what subjects you're doing. I'm a chemistry teacher. If you're doing chemistry, obviously, you can't have sandals and have your feet out because you might drop chemistry on them and hurt yourself. So you've got to obviously consider what subjects you're doing is, their safety considerations with those that you need to think about. But generally, most things are all right. Dress code wise, you can see what these two look like. It's not particularly outrageous, but it is what it is. All right. Any other questions that we want to go to? So, in terms of the structure of the day, I think if you've watched the videos on the sort of typical day of life, that's covered there. But there are 5 1-hour periods in a day, and typically you'll have between 2 and 5 of those filled up with your timetabled lessons. We've had a couple of questions about the bridging work as well. So the main concern is the stuff that we're covering in the bridging work going to be covered again in September when you arrive? The answer to that is absolutely yes. The bridging work is there to be a bit of a springboard essentially to your post-16 work, and hopefully you will find it useful, and it will mean you can sort of hit the ground running, as it were, at the start of year 12. But it's not an expectation that you remember it all inside out and be able to magically do it all. Obviously, your teachers will go through it again at the start of year 12 in a little bit more depth and detail. All right, so there's no need to panic if you have found some of that a bit of a struggle or you've not necessarily understood everything. You'll have the opportunity to have a proper dialogue with your teachers about that at the start of year 12.
Can I add a bit in? When I did the bridging work last summer, I didn't plan to do some of the A-levels that I'm doing now. So I wanted to do psychology, physics, maths and further maths. And then actually when I got here, I decided I didn't want to do psychology, even though I'd done all of the bridging work. And I switched that into chemistry, and still not doing the bridging work, I still managed to cover everything, and I didn't feel behind by not doing the bridging work. Just that bridging work was that little extra head start to get you going.
Absolutely. Right, let's have a look. One of the other questions I've had through is, are we able to use things like iPads and laptops during lessons? Absolutely, you are. Obviously, it's going to be some lessons it might not be so relevant. So, for practical subjects, you might not need it. But you can, by all means, you can bring in devices. Obviously, it's your responsibility to look after them. So you might want to think about getting some sort of device insurance if you are going to bring very expensive bits of kit in. And all of you are able to attach up to 2 devices to the school's network. So, you know, if you've got a fancy iPad that you want to use, then by all means you can bring it in and you can see the IT department and they'll be able to connect you to the network. Also this year, for the first time, I think we're going to be offering Chromebooks to post-16 students at a bit of a discount price. I think they're going to cost about £150. And they're going to be available for any of you to buy if you think that that's going to help. It's not a necessity, and it's certainly not an expectation, though, that you have any sorts of shiny bits of kit. All right, a pen and a pencil will do just fine. And in terms of equipment, other equipment that you might need, well, again, I'd like these guys to jump in here, but you're not, in all likelihood, it's going to be very different from your GCSE experience. You're not going to be issued with a load of exercise books in each lesson. So what would you say are the essential bits of kit to have at the start of the year?
I would say just a normal lined paper pad and a few pens is good enough, and like a small folder that you take around with you for your lessons, and then have a bigger lever arch folder when you get home to put all your notes into, like for each subject. But when you're at school, all you need is a folder, some paper and a pen to get you through the day.
Yeah.
I have a notebook for each subject, so I carry around 4 notebooks every day, and I pop all my notes for each subject into a notebook, and then when I get home, like Ethan said, I sort them out into each folder, and so all my work's organised, know where everything is.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key aspects of starting in year 12 is you've got to make sure you get yourselves very organised, because otherwise you will find very quickly after about 2 or 3 weeks, if you're not, you've just got a bag full of loose paper. You can't really remember what anything's about. So it's probably a really good idea to make sure you've got either, like Meg suggested, some notebooks, or like Ethan said, a sort of folder, which will allow you to, maybe some dividers or plastic wallets. You could probably get those from us here at school, but we won't be able to issue you with folders and things. So make sure you've got some very basic bits of equipment just to make sure that you can keep yourselves organised from day one. Otherwise it's very easy to get into a bit of a mess and a bit of disarray, and it's a bit self-perpetuating that if you're disorganised from the start, you'll find it very hard to get organised later on. So much easier just to get it right from day one. Okay. We don't appear to have any other questions coming in, so if we just, I think at this point, should we just cut to a little video?
Hi, I'm Joe, and this is just a quick typical day in the life of a Bosworth Academy post-16 student. First, I wake up and have breakfast, obviously because it's the most important meal of the day, then get ready for school and head to the bus stop. Now obviously this is different for people that live in the area or can easily just get a lift to school. But I get to school at about 8:20 from the bus, and from there I go to the Oaks, as this is the usual meet-up place with friends. You can get some work done before school starts or just chill, but I'm sure you'll find your own meet-up spot anyway. First period starts at 8:45 and lasts for an hour until 9:45. And at 9:45 you have tutor. Now at tutor you will receive any information you might need, whether this is a change to school life or careers advice. Tutor isn't that tense though. You can catch up with friends and always remember that you can talk to your tutor about whatever you want. They are there to support you. And tutor finishes at 10, giving you a 25-minute break time. And at break you can chill wherever you like, but remember that other year groups have lessons at this time, so it's more like you can chill wherever you can. The canteen is open and this is also a time you can go and fill up your cash on the system. After break there are periods 2 and 3. Period 2 goes from 10:25 until 11:25. The third period goes from 11:25 until 12:25, running right until lunch. Now this is probably a good time to mention study periods. In post-16 you will be introduced to study periods. This is where you don't have a lesson, but you can use this time to do anything you like and anything you think is necessary. Remember, you can have more than one study period in one day. For your study periods, you have to sign in at the Oaks or attendance, but you can find a place in the school that is free, like a classroom, but places like the Oaks and the Compass are there for you to quietly study in. There are a lot of options, but don't worry, you will find the place that suits you best, and you can also spend your study periods with friends. After the third period, there is lunch, and like with break, you can go anywhere that is free. Somewhere like the social room is a good place to be, as this is one of the few places in the school that is exclusively for post-16 students. Therefore, you avoid all the youngsters. Obviously, you can still use this time to do work, but you can also find somewhere in the school that is suitable for you. When lunch ends at 1:10, you will have another 2 lessons, period 4 and 5. Period 4 ends at 2:10, and then period 5 starts, and then your school day will finish at 3:10. Another thing we have at Bosworth Academy are 10 periods. You'll have a 10 period for each lesson once a fortnight, and you can look at this like a study period, except this study should be dedicated to that single subject, and you will usually have a designated room for this. A thing to remember as a post-16 student is that you are in higher education. Your teachers will see you as peers, and it's good to remember that they are always there to support you. So this has been a day in the life, but I guess more of an outline of what your day will involve as a post-16 student. Hope it helped!
Okay, so we're back. We've had one more question in. Please do feel free to use the chat here to ask any extra questions you have that you don't think we've covered or aren't covered by the information on the website. So the question I've had from Will, I'm interested in doing an EPQ. Is this something I can do, and how do I find out about how to go about it? So yes, absolutely. EPQ stands for the Extended Project Qualification, which is something that we offer. It's equivalent to an AS level, so it's not a full A level, it's an AS level, and it's something that you do very independently. So you will, if you were to opt for it, you won't get the normal structure that you have for any other subject with your sort of 9 or 10 lessons a fortnight. Normally you'd have just sort of 1 lesson a fortnight on the timetable, which would be where you learn about the skills required to do it. And the nice thing with the extended project is it's very open. You can do pretty much anything you want to. You can pick any topic that you're interested in doing. What you have to do with the extended project is go away and research it. So really what you're getting from doing an extended project qualification is learning the research skills that learning research skills, and universities very much appreciate that as a qualification because it shows you've got those extra transferable skills about being able to do research. Did either of you do one?
I didn't do an EPQ, but like, from what I understand, you can literally pick any topic you want and you research it, and you should enjoy that research because you've picked that topic, and you have to give a presentation at the end to your teachers about what you've learned and what you've researched.
So as I say, it's very independent. It does require quite a lot of work, and EPQ should constitute something like about 200 hours worth of work, really. So it is a big undertaking, but you do it in your own time, you write it, you'll be assigned a supervisor who's hopefully related to the topic that you've picked. So as a science teacher, I've supervised people in the past doing things on medical procedures and scanning techniques and things like that. But you know, if you're interested in doing something, I don't know, mathematical or engineering, it might be an idea to have a supervisor who's a maths or a physics teacher. So I hope that that's answered the question about the EPQ. It's something that you don't have to immediately sign up for, and there's plenty of time. Normally the EPQ process runs from sort of October, and hopefully if you get it done in year 12, it would then be all done and dusted by the Easter holiday, so towards the end of March, beginning of April. And it's a case of deciding on a topic, deciding on a supervisor, and then really it's over to you to get on with it and do the research. We will support you, obviously, as a supervisor. We'll support you in terms of giving you ideas about where you might want to look for relevant sources of information. We can get you access to university libraries, so we have done that in the past, but again, this past year that was not a possibility due to the pandemic situation, but hopefully will be better next year. So we've got another question from Emma. If unable to come in person to give in your results for your application, what do you have to do? So that's a really good question. I mean, it's important that we just talk about results day, actually. So one of the other questions I've been asked is what happens if you don't think you've met the entry requirements for the certain courses. So again, the usual situation would be people would come in and visit us on results day. We will be here. So your results day this year is Thursday the 12th of August. And we will be here on site, but again, given the nature of the pandemic situation at the moment, what we're going to do is ask that you phone to make an appointment. And it might be that the appointment is in person, or that someone phones you back. If you're unsure about results, make that appointment, and we'll be able to get in touch with you or make a time slot for you. It is obviously a very busy day of the year for us, and we do appreciate that you might not be in the best state of mind for hanging around waiting for an answer. So we'll also make sure that we're available on the Friday as well when things have calmed down a little bit. All right, but it might be that if you only just missed out, that we can still offer a place on the courses you're interested in. If you've missed out by a long way, then it might be that we have to talk about looking at alternative providers, which hopefully you made more than one application when you made your post-16 applications. And we'll be able to advise you about that and where you might want to go looking, who you might want to phone up. But fingers crossed that's not going to be something that you need to be too concerned about. So just to follow up on the EPQ question, could you do an EPQ instead of a fourth A-level is the question. Yes, and some people do that. The only potential pitfall with doing that is it limits you then further on down the line. For example, I know Meg, you're umming and ahhing at the moment. Meg's finished year 12 having studied all 4 A-level subjects, and you're now umming and ahhing about what to drop moving forward, don't you? If you'd been in a position where you dropped something earlier on in the year, or you'd only started with 3, that's not an option. You'd have to be carrying on with all 3. So do you want to just talk about how you're feeling and what you're thinking at the moment?
Yeah, so I started with maths, physics and psychology. As I said earlier, I picked up chemistry instead of psychology, and so I've carried on with my 4 A-levels. I'm coming to the end of year 12 now, and I'm sort of deciding which subjects will be useful for the next steps. So I'm going to go on to uni and do a maths degree. So it's about selecting which of the 3 A-levels are going to benefit me most. Or if I do decide, I can carry on the 4 A-levels if I want to.
Yeah, so you've got much more options available to you if you do 4 full A levels. You can do the EPQ alongside 4 full A levels because, as I said, it's not a huge there's not a huge timetable requirement for that, but it is a big undertaking. All right, so something to consider. But absolutely, yes, you could do it instead of a 4th A level, but it does then potentially limit your flexibility, if you like, a little bit further down the line. But most people in year 12 do sort of try to get through the end of year 12 with their 4 A levels, and then you, as Meg's just talked about, sort of shrink it down to 3, depending on what you're thinking about doing in the future. All right. I've had a few queries and questions about transport. If you go to the home page for the Bosworth Academy website, you should find there's a pop-up that appears on that home page, and one of the links there is all about transport from 2021 onwards. All right, so if you are unsure or you've got questions about transport, that's where to go, and then the webpage will guide you to the appropriate places to make contact with. All right. Couple of questions about tutoring at A levels. So, do you have a tutor? Yes, absolutely. It's still very much like what you will have experienced at high school. You'll be assigned a tutor who will be your tutor for the full 2 years of your A level program, and they'll be your first port of call. That you should sort of form a good relationship with them. Normally, what we try to do with tutors is try to match you with a tutor who's related to one of your opted subjects. So, you know, it's not always possible because we don't always have tutors in every subject area. But for example, if you are doing sciencey type subjects, we'll try and match you up with a sciencey type tutor. If you're doing maths, it might be a mathsy type tutor. So yeah, you'll be with a tutor throughout the 2 years, and they will be someone who you will get to know you quite well. They'll write your sort of personal reference on when it comes to writing references, and your subject teachers will write your academic references when it comes to either university applications or apprenticeships or jobs. So it's important that you get on with your tutor, and they're also the first person you go to if you're having a wobble about something, you're unsure about something. Your tutor's there as someone you know you can go to and talk to, and they'll be able to look after you and guide you and point you in the right direction to get any extra support that you might need. All right, and they will also be responsible for delivering the PSHE program. So again, just like you've experienced at school, at high school, there's still a legal requirement that you have a PSHE program across your post-16 studies. That will cover probably fairly similar topics to those you've experienced at GCSE, to be honest, but with a slightly more grown-up slant. So there'll be sexual health and relationships. There'll be living in the wider world. So things like buying and insuring your first car is always a popular topic in interventions. So, and normally we have an intervention once every 2 weeks. So alongside in those intervention sessions, you'll also be given talks from outside speakers. Often we have very good links with the De Montfort University and Leicester University. They'll come and give talks about how to make university applications, what you should be looking for on open days, preparing for interviews, all those kinds of things. All right, so tutoring is a big part of your A-level experience still, and it's really important that you make the most of it. Another question is just going, how easy is it to change my 4th A-level choice if I'm not interested anymore? Well, Meg, again, how long was it before you decided to swap from psychology to chemistry, wasn't it?
So I went into my first psychology lesson, and I sat there and I listened, and I thought, this is not for me. I then went to the second lesson, and just to 100% make sure I didn't want to do it. Then I went and spoke to Leslie, and straight away, easy, she put me over onto the chemistry timetable, and then I just went to the chemistry lesson. It's that easy. I just transitioned straight over, and Leslie's really good at sorting your timetable and making sure everything fits together. So the transition is so easy.
Okay, so I mean, the caveat that I would make with that is obviously some courses are full. So it just so happens you did it the right way around. Yeah. Psychology is often a very, very full course. So as long as the timetable allows it and there is space in the classes, it is as easy as Meg's just explained. You go and see Leslie and she'll switch you over, print you out a new timetable, and everything should be all right. And normally, I would say, I mean, ideally, you're doing the right subjects for you from day one, but you can make changes probably up to 2 or 3 weeks into the first term. Obviously, the longer you leave it, the more you've got to then catch up from what you've missed at the start, and that can be quite challenging with some subjects, certainly with sort of maths and sciences. They'll be well underway within, by the time 3 weeks is over in September, so you need to really try and make that decision sooner rather than later. But I appreciate it is difficult. You're changing somebody from doing 10 or 11 GCSE subjects down to 3 or 4. All right, but don't worry. We've got that. We've designed it almost so that you've got that 2 or 3 week period at the start of the year when you can make changes. Can it be done? What does it say? Can it be done before I start the course? What if you mean before you start in September? Yes, absolutely. So you can get in touch with us and say, all right, I've had a bit of a change of heart. I think I'd want to swap this for this. And again, if it's possible, based on the numbers we have in lessons, then it's a very easy thing to switch your timetable around. Obviously, there are always going to be occasions where certain subjects clash with each other, so certain combinations are not possible, or classes are full, in which case we obviously have to give preference to those people who opted for it originally. If you're late, you'll have to go onto a sort of waiting list and see if we can accommodate you. So hopefully that makes sense. Anything else? So a couple of things. So I've got questions about one question which I'm afraid. Well, so one question that's come up a few times from the questionnaire that I sent out a couple of weeks ago was, will I get the opportunity to possibly come and look around the academy before we start proper in September? And I mean, obviously that's what today would be about in any normal year. But again, unfortunately, given the situation with the pandemic this year, it's really hard for us to be able to accommodate that. I appreciate as well that a lot of you might feel quite anxious about coming to a new school, because obviously it's a bit of a change, but you will find that everyone here is very friendly, and there will be lots of people on your enrolment afternoon when you come in at the start of September. You'll get a tour of the school, you'll meet your tutor, and there'll be lots of people like these two who are currently will be year 13s by then, who'll be helping out, making sure that you know where you're going and you find your way around, and that will be the case for the first full week. You will try and make sure that there are people who can guide you, and everyone is very helpful generally, so you don't need to worry too much. But yeah, unfortunately this year we're not able to get you in to have a proper look round and get a feel for the place before you actually come and start proper.
You can be provided with a map at any point. I remember when I first came, so I transitioned from Market Bosworth to Bosworth Academy, and I came here and I thought, oh no, where is that classroom, where is that classroom? And I just went to Leslie and she printed me out a map, and then easily I could make my way around the school.
So question about how the bursary works. So the bursary is available to people. It's a little bit of a faff, unfortunately, but it has to be done this way. It's based on your household income. So you have to, at the start of the year, we've got bursary forms that you'd have to take home and fill in to see if you are eligible. If you are, and those forms will require various bits of paperwork from home to be sort of filled in. Once we've established whether you are eligible for a bursary, there is a sort of set amount that can be allocated to each student, and it can be used for all sorts of things. So if you decide, for example, you'd like one of the Chromebooks that I talked about earlier, it might be that we could use it for that. It certainly often is used for things like obviously course textbooks, things like that. Any trips that might be available on your course, with the bursary will be used to sort of make sure that we can fund your places on those and things like that. So it's not a bottomless pit, and it's not just a case of you can use it for whatever you want. It can be used to help you with your transport costs, certainly. And there isn't a set time, but there is a set amount that we can allocate per student. So once it's gone, it's gone. Okay. Another question, what's going to be covered during the 2-hour induction on the day before we start? So the idea of that 2 hours in the afternoon, so it will be from about, if memory, I can't remember the times exactly, but it was on, it was about 12:30 till 2:30 or something like that, I think something like that. So the idea of that is you'll come in on that day, you'll meet me, you'll meet your tutor, you'll meet your tutor groups, you'll go and sit in your tutor base, so you'll get to start familiarise yourself with the people you're going to spend the next 2 years with. Hopefully we'll be able to issue you with your timetables then. Possibly we'll have get your mug shots taken so you can get your ID badges and stuff sorted out, which will then be able to get your bus numbers and transport sorted for that. As well, so there might be some team building activities involved in that. There will be the opportunity to go on a little tour of the school. So as I've said, unfortunately at the moment you're not able to come in and see around the place, but you will on that day. So it will easily fill that 2 hours, don't worry about it, and it will hopefully just make you feel a little bit more at ease about then coming in the following day to start your lessons proper. So I've got, when can we apply for the bursary? So, sorry, hopefully that covers what's happening on the term induction. When can we apply for the bursary? So as I say, it involves paperwork and taking some paperwork home. So you can apply for the bursary once you've arrived with us. You can then get the paperwork from the Post 16 office, which is in the Oaks. Take it home, get it filled in, and once you've got it filled in, we can then determine eligibility for bursary. Another question: are Year 12 students allowed to leave campus at lunchtime, and is table football still allowed to be used during COVID times next year? Yeah, don't worry, table football is fine. So that's still there in the social area, and you will still be allowed to use that. With regard to leaving campus at lunchtime, I mentioned that a little bit earlier. Normal years, you would be allowed to decide in and out. Obviously, as we said, Ethan and Meg haven't had that experience this year with the pandemic. But this, we're going to have to play that by ear. I can't say yes or no yet at the moment as to whether or not that's going to be a thing next year. But hopefully, as you know, the pandemic eases and we get more and more back to normal, we will be in a position where we will be able to do that. But for now, I can't say yes or no with regard to signing out. It might be that we still have to keep you on site for the first half term or however long. But as things get easier and things get back to normal, hopefully we'll be able to release you into the community. All right, and you can go up to the village and buy a donut in the co-op, which seems to be what most Year 12s do with that opportunity. All right. Final question that I've got really in terms of my list of questions that you sent me before today was, what does the school provide in terms of support with university applications and work experience? So we've got historically a very good track record of supporting students in going to both Oxbridge and to Russell Group universities. We've had quite a lot of students be successful in applications for medicine courses as well over recent years. Ethan, actually, would you like to mention what you've set up this year?
Yeah, this year me and a group of other students have set up the Bosworth Academy Medical Society, in which we all help each other with our applications to go to medicine, because it can be quite competitive to get onto a medicine course at any university. So being part of this group can give everyone an insight into what they need to do and how they can do it.
Absolutely, yeah. As Ethan said, medicine is one of the most competitive subjects to get into. It's really nice this year that you guys have got together as a group to try and support each other and look at, and we've been able to get past students in to come and talk to them about their experiences of how the application process works. It's a lot more complicated than you would have thought. And that's where it's really helpful to have a group of you working together on it. And again, we have some experience. We can't profess to be experts, obviously, but we certainly know what we're doing in supporting people with that kind of thing. And with regard to work experience, there's each week Leslie will send out email blasts, essentially normally on a Friday afternoon, with all the opportunities that we've been sent during the week, unless it's been a quiet week, in which case she won't. And it's up to you to make the most of those opportunities. So, there's work experience placements, there's apprenticeship opportunities, all sorts of things pop up on those, but you've got to make the most of them. And we're also a part of the LEBC network, which means that we can help anyone who wants to get a work experience placement. You can get a work experience placement anywhere from year 10 to year 13. All right, it's not necessarily going to be the ideal work experience placement for you. It might be that you have to go and look for yourselves outside of school for those sorts of things. Right, the questions are coming a bit thick and fast now. Hold on. So, do we have many sports teams available to join? Not really. We suggest if you're interested in sports teams that you take part in sports teams outside of school, because at post 16 the focus is much more on your academic studies. Obviously, we encourage you to adopt a healthy lifestyle and get involved in sports and things, but we don't have any specific teams at post 16 level. It tends to be the lower down the school that we do. Can we just do 3 A levels from the start of year 12? Yes, it is a possibility, but again, as I talked about a little earlier on, it really significant. The reason we ask people to start on 4 is it gives you I refer to it gives you a bit of a safety net in terms of being able to then decide for certain which of the 4 subjects, which 3 out of the 4 you start with are for you. If you start with 3, you are committed to 3 throughout the entire 2 years of study. So I'd suggest, even if you're fairly sure about the 3 you want to do, I'd still suggest and recommend strongly you start with 4, and then it might be after half a term. I think anyone can deal with half a term. You might have really decided, actually, this one is definitely not for me and I'm not happy doing it, continuing with it. At that point, it's very sensible then to drop down to 3, all right? We're not saying you have to do 4 subjects for the entirety of year 12. I'm sure you've got many friends, haven't you, who've already dropped down to 3, but all of them would have started on 4 subjects, because it does then mean after half a term you can make that informed decision. It's especially true of subjects like psychology and sociology, where people have an idea of what they think it's about, but obviously having never studied it before, the realities of it might be a little different. So you will need to, I would advise you strongly to start with 4. Okay.
But most people, they end up starting with 4, and by the end of year 12, they see which subject they perform the least in their AS levels and decide if they want to drop that or carry on with it. And it mostly happens at the end of year 12 when people decide if they want to carry on with 4 or go on with 3.
Yeah, quite a few people start with the 4 and then maybe halfway through year 12 decide, actually, I don't want to do the 4 anymore, I want to drop down to doing 3, but then they pick up an EPQ, so then they're still getting that AS level experience, but with the 3 A levels as well.
Fantastic. Another question, instead of using books with dividers in lesson time, can we use our own laptops or tablets to make notes if you find it easier? Yeah, absolutely. Very flexible about how you do things. Obviously, with certain subjects, it's not necessarily easier to work on a laptop. Again, I'm speaking from my perspective. I'm a chemistry teacher. It's very, very difficult to accurately write down lots of chemical equations and draw lots of diagrams and things like that when you're trying to type on a laptop. It's a lot easier if you've got a pen and a paper. But each to their own. If you've got a fancy iPad with your fancy, Apple Pen, then you might find that incredibly useful. But I'm a great believer in a pen and a pencil still. But absolutely, it's up to you how you want to do things. No, your teachers aren't going to complain at you. Obviously, if you're sitting there watching YouTube videos instead of paying attention during your lesson, then there's a bit of an issue. But hopefully you won't be doing that. All right? So absolutely, you can use the things, but I would always recommend you do have some paper and something to write with as a backup as well, because the network may drop in and out, and it's not always guaranteed that your battery's going to last a day and all those kinds of things. All right. So, but certainly, if you are comfortable using technology to make your notes and things, then you absolutely can do so. How do seating plans work? Is there a seating plan, or can we choose where we'd like to sit? We do ask. We ask all the teachers to insist on making seating plans for you in your various lessons. more than anything else, that's to avoid you ending up sitting in your own little cliques, because we want you to get a sense of being a Bosworth Academy student when you arrive with us. If we let you sit wherever you like, what inevitably happens is you end up sitting with your mates from high school will all be sat. So you'll have the Market Bosworth people sat here, the Brockington people sat there, the South Sharma people there, and the Bosworth people over there. We want to try and mix you up and make you all feel like you're actually part of the same gang, as opposed to all your separate little clubs that you've been used to before. And it's important because obviously you're going to be working in these subjects with the people for probably 2 years. It's really important that you build good working relationships. I don't know, do you guys feel like that?
Yeah.
Do you feel
Yeah.
do you still hang, I mean, in lessons,
Yeah.
are you still working with the same people you were at high school with? Or?
No, I mean, I still obviously talk to my Market Bosworth friends, but I've made so many more friends from all the different schools, and now we all just work together, especially now we're coming to the end of year 12. We've all sort of made that bond in each class, and we can all work together.
Great. In terms of enrichment, is there a set number of hours we have to put in each year? Also, how useful would you say lockers are on your day-to-day? So, in terms of enrichment, we ask people to, we ask you to aim for about up to sort of 40, I think it's 20 hours per enrichment card. So you get a little card, you can fill it in. It's not essential that you fill in a card, but the nice thing about getting involved in the enrichment activities, so that could be anything from helping out on an open evening, it could be helping do tours of the school for prospective students, if we ever get back around to being allowed to do them. It could be helping out in lessons. The nice thing about getting involved in that is it gives you some fodder for your applications then beyond Bosworth, so it will be, you know, you're not just appearing as an academic thing, you've got a bit more to your character, because I think it's very easy to just focus on only your work when you're a post-16 student. And actually you'll find when you're making applications to university and for jobs, they're looking for more than just being an academic thing. They're looking for all those transferable skills, all those things we talk about, you know, showing character, being a good communicator, being a good leader, being a good team player, all those kind of things, and that's what you'll get out from taking part in the enrichment programme. So no, we don't say you have to do a certain number of hours, but the more you do, the more you're going to be able to talk about those things you've done to support others and appear as a more well-rounded human being. Do sixth form students get the same lunchtime as younger years? So this year's been very different. We've had to have separate lunchtimes for every year group because every year group's been a bubble during the pandemic. Normally there's 2 lunchtimes. I'm not sure how it's going to work and when we're going to return to that model next year. But normally, so the even years are all on lunch at the same time, so that would be years 8, 10 and 12. And then the odd years are all on at lunchtime together, so that's obviously 7, 9, 11 and 13. So yes, there is a bit of mixing with the younger year groups, but generally there's enough, it can be a bit of a squish, but there's enough space for people. And obviously you've got your sanctuary. If you've got your lunch, then you can eat in the canteen. But if you've got your packed lunch, you can obviously go and retire to the Oaks area, which is exclusively for post-16 students. So you don't have to mingle with the younger year groups. All right. What are the rules in terms of listening to music? Not in lessons, study periods, absolutely fine. Stick headphones in there, so we don't all have to listen to it. Our students granted access to the school Wi-Fi. So again, yeah, each of you can get 2 devices on the school, signed onto the school network. You have to go and see the IT department to do that. But yes, so there are 2 devices. There are obviously limitations on what you can access through the school network for obvious reasons. What sort of extra revision studies and homework do we get and how much? So, I mean, extra revision studies, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Certainly in year 13, some subjects will put on extra revision sessions after school. Not all of them, and it's not an expectation that any subject should, but often subjects do, especially sort of from Christmas up to about Easter or even further in year 13. when you're really gearing up for those final exams. So that can happen. You obviously can always go and talk to your teachers and get support if you are struggling with things. Homeworks, go on.
Yeah, well, you get homework obviously during school, but it's not enough to like overwhelm you. You'll probably get an hour's worth of homework for every hour of work you do in lessons. So, for example, if you do a lesson in biology on something and you're given a pack of questions to go do to the next lesson, it's not like you'll be set mass amounts of work. It's just enough to keep your knowledge going on for the next lesson.
Yeah, definitely. I've experienced, because I do maths and science, normally we learn a bulk of content and then we start exam questions in the lesson, and then your job is obviously to go home and finish off what you haven't completed in the lesson, and normally that just continues and continues until you've finished all the questions, really.
Yeah, and I think you might, hopefully you found this from your GCSE work, you know, the best way to get good at subjects most of the time is to just practice exam questions, and that is going to be that will be a big feature no matter which subject you're studying at A level. There'll be lots of that practice happening as part of the lessons. What is an A-star equivalent to in UCAS points? I believe it's 56. And can we achieve this at AS? No, you can't. There's no such thing as an A-star at AS level. But you can only, an A-star is only a thing at A level at the end of year 13. How does the food system work in the canteen? Is there a set meal for certain days or does it vary? So the canteen puts the menu up for the week at the start of the week, so you can always find the week's menu up on the board and out in the canteen. And we operate a cashless catering system, so again, this is why it's so important you're always wearing your lanyard and you've got your ID card, because your ID card allows you to access to certain doors which will be locked during the day for security reasons. It will act as your bus pass, and it will also act as your means to pay for food. All right, so there's an online system called Squid, which is the cashless catering system, which you can just which you can top up your card, and that's basically how it works. It is a varied menu. It's not the same every day or every week. And so there's always hot food. There's also the pasta bar, so you get your pasta pots with various things, and there's a sandwich bar if you prefer cold food. So your experiences food-wise?
I mainly bring packed lunches, but sometimes on a Friday I have school food. I normally have the sandwiches. BLT is great from the canteen, and yeah, they do supply a really good range of food.
Okay. In terms of resources like textbooks, equipment, how much is provided by the sixth form? None of it, really. It's really your responsibility to get the stuff. As I say, if you are in a position where you struggle financially, then we do have the post-16 bursary available, which you can sign up for at the start of year 12. Is there work experience in year 13 similar to what you've done in year 10? So again, work experience, if you are wanting to do something like Ethan, for example, is wanting to apply for medicine, really we'd encourage that you need to put yourself out there and go and seek it out for yourself. That's very true if you're looking at subjects like medicine, veterinary science, things like that, midwifery, nursing, all of those kinds of things. It's important that you try and secure some work experience, because that's something that they look on when you make your application. We are, as I said, part of the LEBC partnership, which means that we can provide a work experience placement for you. There's no guarantees it will be perfect in terms of suitability for what you're wanting to do. Hopefully it will be in the ballpark of the area you're interested in. But yes, so we can help you secure work experience. Generally, you wouldn't do that in year 13, because year 13 is all about sitting your A-levels at the end of the year. So generally, if you're going to do a work experience placement, we aim to get you to do it at the end of year 12. But as well as that, it's not just about work experience. There are other opportunities in year 12. Things like many universities offer sort of placement, summer schools and summer placements where you can access perhaps some online lectures, or it might be go and have a little look round and things like that. So it's a case of keeping your eyes open. We will inform you of the opportunities, and present them to you, but it's up to you to make the most of them and sign up to them. Obviously, if you need us to write references for you, we'll help with that. If you're writing applications for things, we'll help with that. But we're not going to force you in a particular direction. It's up to you as to whether or not you're going to secure one of those opportunities when they arise. How much do UCAS points matter to universities? Well, UCAS points, UCAS points and grades are interchangeable. A grade is worth a certain number of UCAS points. And some universities will make offers based on points, and some will make them based on grades. So they're very interchangeable. So, for example, the university might say, we want you to get 112 UCAS points. That's equivalent to 2 A stars, or I'm trying to work it out off the top of my head. I think that's about 2 B's and a C. I'm not sure, I can't, but it's not something that you need to worry too much at this stage about, but certainly it's something you can start to think about and start looking at what you might want to do in the future. Lunchtime or after school clubs, again, not so much really at post 16. There's obviously the Oaks is open until it's open till about 7 o'clock each night. So if you are here after school, what we'd really like to see you doing is using that extra time to do extra studying and using the Oaks for that. There are some sort of lunchtime clubs and things you can get involved in, but there'll be more information about that when you start in year 12, I think. And I think that's just about gets us to the end of the hour. So unless there are any outstanding questions that you want to ask anyone on the chat, then please do so. If not, we will make sure that we put this video up on the website for anyone else to access. So just last one in, do you have a fitness area or gym, and is it open? So we do, and they're working on opening that up a little bit more. We've got a very small weights room which has got a running machine and a rowing machine and some exercise bikes in it. But it is going to be, and as long as it's not being used by the PE department during lessons, then it is available. You'd have to sign in with a member of the PE department, and obviously for safety reasons, particularly if you wanted to use the weights, you'd have to make sure because I think there are free weights in there, you'd have to make sure that you are with someone else, because we don't want you obviously suffocating yourself by dropping a big barbell on your neck or something. All right, so we do have a little weights room, a little gym, which is going to be available certainly for post 16. Obviously, during COVID times, it's been less available, but as long as equipment is wiped down and you're using it with people in the same bubble as you, that's fine. All right, so hopefully that answers that question. So I will leave it there. Hopefully you've got some useful information from this. And please do email me. I'm mdover@bosworthacademy.org.uk, or Leslie, whose email address is lbrooks@bosworthacademy.org.uk, with any queries or questions if you feel that things haven't been covered by the videos on today's website or what we've just been through. And I'd like to say a massive thanks to Ethan and Meg for helping me out with this. And thank you very much.
At Bosworth Academy, our mission is to have a relentless focus on our children. We are an extraordinary school with unique values. Our young people can make such a difference to the world, especially during these changing times. That's why our education is deeply rooted in strong values.
We believe that student achievement is more than just academic success. Our focus on the 6 C's and global competencies prepares students for life after school. We provide a range of support to enable our students to achieve their aspirations.
We provide for our staff a world-class programme of professional learning, making sure that we learn from the best international research and studies, and we put that into practice in our own learning and teaching approaches in our classrooms. Our teachers will really look to light that spark, to get students really excited about learning, so that we can find the passion that's within every learner. We aim to prepare our students to confront the future with real imagination and creativity.
We are in the top 20% of sixth form providers in the country, and all our teachers are subject experts with high expectations.
At Bosworth Academy, we truly strive for excellence, and together we achieve.